Welcome to Face the State. I'm Ariana Bennett. Thank you for joining us. Last school year, more than a quarter of Washoe County students were considered chronically absent. That means they missed at least 10% of the school year. But while that number has dropped from previous highs, it still puts a lot of kids at risk of falling behind. So, Rochelle Murillo with Washoe County School District and BJ Foster with Communities and Schools of Western Nevada are here with me to talk about that. Thank you both so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Now, an important issue here, 10% or more of a school year, is that enough to make, pretty significant differences in how kids perform and what they learn?
Yeah, it actually is. So 10% of the school year is only 2 days a month, but at the end of the year, that ends up being 18 days. So that's a half a month of missed instruction when children aren't in school.
Yeah, I guess when you put it that way, it is half a month. If you missed half a month of school, you definitely miss out on things.
Right.
So then taking this to the natural progression, it sounds like it's kind of a snowball effect. What happens from there?
Well, what ends up happening is students end up getting academic gaps when they're missing school, and as they progress through their grades, the academic gaps become greater and greater. They become more disconnected with school staff, more disconnected with their peers. They get frustrated, and it becomes sort of a vicious cycle of not wanting to go to school now because you don't feel successful or part of the school community.
So then maybe coming up with excuses to not go to school, and then every year this is happening more and more. And then I read somewhere that not being in school as much is one of the biggest predictors of whether they'll drop out down the line, like in high school.
Yeah.
So even in elementary school, that can predict what happens down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, it starts pretty early on, and people don't think about that. You don't wake up in the 11th grade and you decide, I'm not going to school anymore. It really does start much, much early on, and we have indications all the way down to, kindergarten?
Yes, kindergarten.
So how big of a problem is this in Washoe County compared to the state, compared to other places?
Well, our numbers are actually lower than some of our other districts in Nevada, but chronic absenteeism has become an issue across our nation since the pandemic, and we continue to struggle to return to pre-pandemic rates.
What is it about the pandemic that did it?
I think it reset the button as far as just what do we do. You have parents who need students to stay home and take care of the other siblings. You have all these different elements that come into play that maybe before the pandemic didn't exist.
What about economic troubles? I mean, we're definitely in a time now where more people appear to be struggling based on almost every indicator we have. Does that tend to create a bigger absenteeism problem, or are they not related?
Those are absolutely related. So when families have inconsistent housing, they're having difficulty meeting ends meet, they have food insecurity, they don't know where they're going to get their next meal, they don't know if they're going to have a home to live in next week. That becomes stressors that has direct correlations to parents struggling with trying to get their children to school and supporting things like homework every night.
Yeah, I imagine even things like transportation. If you don't have the money in the bank to fix a car if it breaks down, and that's your way of getting your kids to school, people might just not do it.
Right.
So and I know that you do talk to people, and this is something that the district has done for years, is this outreach, this one-on-one to find out what the barrier is to families. What are you hearing from them?
Thank goodness we have people like Rochelle, FRC, that can really help in those areas where parents don't know where to turn. I think we're in a space right now where people, they know they need help, they know that they need some kind of situation of support. They don't know where to go for it. So, and Rochelle will be able to share more about what she does, but to be able to turn to someone that can direct you to some kind of support. We know that kids cannot sit in a classroom and learn if they're hungry. It's like, we know this, but we can't just say, sorry, you're hungry. We have to figure out a solution. We have to be able to turn them over to someone who can help them find the food that they need or find the rest that they need night to night.
Are there trends that are consistent where we can say this is the number one problem, or is it as individual as each individual family?
So it can be individual, but we are seeing trends. So one of the things in the Washoe County School District is we house the Family Resource Centers. Those are part of centers that are located across Nevada, but we're one of the unique ones that are housed under a school district. We can get referrals directly from counselors or school social workers or any agency. And those that are getting referred to us are families that are struggling with affording housing. Rent costs are increasing, food costs, gas costs. All those things are impacting families' ability to just to live. So those are some of the patterns. That's probably the #1 call that we get in our family resource centers to help people access rental assistance or just stay in their homes so that they don't become homeless.
So are you able to help them directly through those centers, or are you referring out to like Reno Housing Authority?
We do a little bit of both. So we do several things, like we sometimes have minimal emergency rental assistance. Sometimes we'll have families where we put them in weekly motels so that if they call us today and they don't have anywhere to go tonight, we'll put them up immediately in a weekly motel, and then we'll work with Reno Housing Assistance to get them more long-term assistance. So we do both direct services, but we also work with our trusted partners to get more long-term sustainable access for families.
How big is the gap between the families who need help like this and the amount of help that we have available?
I would say huge. So the rental assistance has decreased pretty significantly over the years. We have minimal rental assistance now. We have to make hard decisions sometimes in terms of what do we do to help this family. We don't always have access to the funds. And so we have to brainstorm. Do you have someone to stay with? Do you have a friend? Do you have family that you can stay with? And those are tough decisions for families, especially when they're trying to keep their children in the school that the children have relationships with, they know, they love, they're a part of that community, and they have to make those tough decisions. And so that's a huge issue for our families.
Where in the equation then do all of our CIS workers come in?
Well, luckily we are in the schools, so we have the opportunity to build relationships with the students, excuse me, and to get those students to actually open up about what's happening, what they're feeling, what they need, because you can't meet those needs if you're blind to them. So the fact that we're in the schools, working with the school population, we get a chance to identify, okay, what is the gap in this particular child's life? Because they're not all the same. They're very similar, but they're not all the same. So you may have one child that's really struggling academically because maybe there's some disorder, some kind of learning disorder, and the teacher is sitting in a classroom with 30, 40 some odd kids to have a one-on-one person who can sit with this child and help. So we become that caring adult in their life, and then we can help guide them towards a Rochelle or someone of that nature to help, again, meet the needs of those families.
So you're our boots on the ground, then information gets to the district, and hopefully you can refer them out to the resources that are available to help them. How effective is all of this intervention so far?
So far, we've seen that families are able to be more sustainable. So if we're able to have a CIS worker work with a student where they have a trusted adult, someone that they can go to help just be a mentor to them and help them just feel welcome. And we're able to work with families through family resource centers. We provide case management so we can help them to sustain a job, sustain transportation, sustain access to food, those kinds of things. It's incredibly effective, and we're seeing that those families that engage with us and work with us long term have better rates of attendance, and we see improvements in academics of those students as well.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about the funding issue. What are the main barriers to then implementing as much of this as you'd like, getting as much help as possible to as many people as possible?
I would probably say that it's that funding again, and I hate to just keep going back to that again and again, but it's funding. It's funding for the folks to be working with students, to work in our family resource centers so that we can pay them to be able to do the real work, but it's also the funding for direct services so that we can help families that are in crisis and then do the work that we need to do to help them become sustainable on their own.
So where does the funding come from now? Is this part of the budget that comes from the state, or is this coming from outside?
A little bit of both. You know, we definitely fundraise to make ends meet on our end, but then the school district has to pitch in order to bring at least our people into the school to work. We're asking the community for help. The kids don't understand, I'm sorry, we don't have the funds. That simply is that's not a solution. So whatever we have to do to figure it out, that's what we're trying to do.
And our family resource centers are entirely grant funded, so some of them are state grants, some of them we apply to federal grants, but they're entirely grant funded.
And that is tenuous also. Did you lose federal grant funding as with the last round of cuts?
Yeah, we did have some grants that came to an end. Some of them were because of cuts, some were just coming to an end at the end of their grant cycle. So we're continually working to find additional funding, and that's why we appreciate working with the community when they're able to do things like raise funds for us so that we can continue on supporting families.
Okay. I mean, I think it's clear that we want to keep kids in school, but if you can kind of summarize for me, what is the community importance of this kind of on a broad scale, why this issue matters?
You know, I would say involving the community so they're aware that students can be struggling. But for example, we did a partnership with RTC, who they have provided free transportation for our students because transportation can be a struggle sometimes. And so now our students can ride our buses for free, and that is an example of a community partnership. Where now we can provide free resources to students so that we can improve their attendance.
And it does take a village. We've all heard that, you know, and the more I think the community is aware of the need. We have an incredible community. People want to serve, they want to give, they want to care for us, our kids. And I think the more aware they are, the more as a big village we can take care of the kids around us.
Yeah, we do see people step up in so many different ways, and I think you're right that you just have to tell them this is an area where it's needed. So in that vein, do you need volunteers at CIS, or are you volunteer based, or is it all paid workers? How does that work?
We do have volunteers who come in and help out wherever we can utilize the help. Like we have our big fill the bus, and that's when we get all the school supplies that come in during the summer. That's a great opportunity for volunteers to step in to volunteer donating, but also loading all of that up, getting it out to the different schools. Anytime we have various school activities that we can also bring the community into. So we're trying to truly bridge the gap. So it isn't just the kids, the school, and then the community outside of it. We need to become one.
Okay. Well, we are out of time, but thank you both so much for being here and for everything you're doing to help our kids. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ari.
Now, coming up on Face the State, we're now convinced, right, that we need to keep our kids in school. So how can the community help to move that needle? I will sit down with a local nonprofit to find out right after the break.